What's up, y'all? And welcome back to the Woman Be Healed podcast. I'm your host, Rashonda Powell. Before we get started, I want to throw out there that this episode is a heavy one, but it's a topic that's becoming more and more our reality that we need to dig deep into it and actually address it. So I want y'all to really tap in. Leave any shame at the door and bring your shovel to dig out what some of us may be hiding. Tonight, we're speaking on the spirit of depression and anxiety. Depression is defined as a mood disorder that affects the way that we act, the way we feel, and handle daily activities. If you grew up in church, your household may define it as a spirit and a strategic attack of the enemy. And if you know, like I know, it's all of the above. So a couple of days ago, the world got some devastating news that we lost one of our Black men to suicide. And if you follow the Ellen Show, or I think it was so we think we can dance. Twitch from the Ellen Show committed suicide. And I followed Twitch and his wife Allison, and I was a big fan of their dance videos because you could almost feel the love between them. And I was just a big fan of the Ellen Show because that was my thing with my grandma for a while. But seeing the news that he committed suicide hit my heart so bad because even though I didn't personally know him, that weight of depression was something I could really personally relate to. I could just feel, I felt like I could feel, some of the heaviness that his mind and his heart carried while choosing his wife every day and his children every day until one day he just couldn't fight anymore. And it has to be an unbearable feeling to choose death because of how bad your mind is tortured. To come to the rationale that I know my wife and children love me and I love them, but I can't go through this another day. And what we fail to realize is, or what we fail to see, and it's so minimalized. Depression is not a weakness. It's a strategic plan of the enemy. It's not an excuse. It's an attack. It's not selfish. It's painful. This man may have had mountains of love, but his mind was so tortured that his senses were blind to what was around. That's an attack. The enemy throws the smoke screen up so that we can't see and focus in on our blessings. Put this obstacle there so they can't see that this was actually a setup for their greatness. Create distractions. That's the enemy's plan. The enemy is so on a rampage, and he's coming for something that no one can see, but we can feel it. He's coming for something that if it ain't right, it throws our entire body off balance. He's targeting our minds, because if our minds ain't right, we don't sleep right. We don't eat right. We don't think clearly. We don't make the right decisions. We start to believe everything the enemy is saying, his lies, and then he has us right where he wants us, discouraged and disabled, so that our purpose is thrown off and we're out of alignment and can't fulfill God's plan. And we can't live in abundance and peace and joy. The enemy is so strategic that he's using these platforms and daily activities to separate us from God and sift us as wheat. So let's really explore them. What are these daily activities and platforms that you're speaking of? Y'all, if y'all know me and follow my pages, you may be able to tell that me and social media have a love-hate relationship. I am so inconsistent. And I'm inconsistent because social media, I hate the mindset that it creates for me sometimes. It's an amazing networking tool if you use it correctly, but it's also something that can create a spiral to comparison and creating negative thought patterns and conforming behaviors. Like, you never know the real behind the reels. REAL versus REELS. We sit there and scroll through social media, and all these messy thoughts can creep in. She went to school with me and she got 3 degrees, a big corporate job, a nice car. Lord, she married with kids and got this nice life and big old house. She goes on vacation every month. I wish, that messed up. Because that's what comparison and now envy and whatever else just crept in just as quick as your fingers were scrolling. But what we fail to realize is in those pictures stand still. Those cameras stop rolling. And we never know what's behind that smile on the camera or what it took or is still taking for all that glamour you think is glamour is happening. We don't know what it took for that or what it's still taking or at what cost. Money don't always mean happy, and big don't always mean more. How many of y'all know that the devil was a musician? I'm a music head big time. So if a beat come on, I'm moving and I'm singing. But what we fail to realize is music is a biggie on the mind and mood. So when you're upset, do you go to music? What kind of music do you listen to? If you're down, if I'm down, I'm going to gospel. If I'm happy, I'm picking a gospel song that's like upbeat and whatever. Sometimes on the weekends, I may listen to a little R&B, a little rap. Therefore, music is a strategy. It can be used as a strategy for the enemy as well. It's a strategic for you to lift your mood. It's strategic for the enemy to use for different thought patterns to creep in without us even knowing it. Listen, I love an instrument. Can't play one worth a nickel. But I love listening to music and picking apart the instruments and the beats behind the words. I would listen to rap and R&B or whatever, and then just I'm thinking I'm paying attention to the beat and not the words because I like the beat. But I started to notice that even without me doing it, I was actually learning the words to the song. And then when I began to realize the words that I was singing, they weren't aligned with what me or my God was about. These artists and producers are strategically placing these hidden messages and meanings in the songs. And some aren't even hidden. It's like clear as day. You can have a nice beat and clearly say, I'm a devil worshiper. Like, what? We outside moving our hips. Saying it don't mean nothing. But we having nightmares and can't sleep at night. And wonder why. Just like the enemy is strategically using these artists and producers and placing this mess in these songs to really sink into our minds, we need to strategically place what's in our minds and what we feed it. And we do that by surrounding ourselves with like-minded people, getting in our word, reading books that elevate our minds and teach good principles. We listen to podcasts, listen to music that uplifts and speaks truth. Be strategic on what you feed yourself. And just to speak on the stigma that the busier you are and the harder you grind leads to success is nuts. Busy don't always mean success because you can be busy and non-productive, grinding and being stagnant. Learn to strategize and rest. Passive income is real, and so is delegation. Jesus rested, and he also appointed disciples. Now, to really get into another strategy that benefits us in a real world setting, I want to speak on therapy. Y'all, I really want to know what person came up and spreaded the rumor that therapy is for crazy people. For one, we all are crazy sometimes. And God isn't raising up these good therapists, these good counselors and psychologists for his people to act like we don't have sense enough to accept help. It's so taboo in the church and in minorities because we are taught to prey on it and leave it there. We're taught to not tell people our business. And there's limits to that. Of course, you don't want to go around spreading your business to people that you know run their mouth and are doing it to be spiteful or doing it to bring you down. Therapy is not taboo. And it don't matter what nobody else has to say. Do it for you. God is a miracle working God and a healer. He also gives us this beautiful mind to use, and his word gives us so many examples of us having to show up for ourselves. You have to show up for God to heal you. You have to show up for God to deliver you. The woman with the issue of blood, she came and showed up for herself, touched the hem of Jesus' garment and was healed. She showed up for herself. With these different kings in the Bible, they had to show up for God to deliver the nations into their hands. Show up for yourselves and believe that God will work those resources in your favor to grant you your healing. Yes, you pray on it, you stop worrying, but show up and God will work it out and be with you every step of the way. And last but certainly not least, I want to speak on prayer and fasting and getting in your word. God knows the human mind, and he knows that the enemy is a slick old serpent that is just trying to get us down and destroy us. He's going to try us just like he tried Jesus. And when we read about the devil tempting Jesus, we know that Jesus shut him on up with the word. And every response, Jesus was like, it is written. It is written that man shall not live by bread alone, but on every word that comes from the mouth of God. It is written, don't test my God. And that's exactly what getting in your word does. It equips you. God knows our mind is a battlefield, a whole war zone, and a breeding ground for everything under the sun, from fear, worry, anxiety, desire, lust, greed, faith, fear, confusion, power, all that stuff. And it's also why he's so repetitive in his word. If you haven't noticed, when you read scripture, God often repeats himself. He's like, I am the Lord your God. I am with you. I will never leave you nor forsake you. Be not discouraged. Do not be afraid. You see those all over the Bible. Repetition is strategic as well because it causes the brain to form new pathways. The more you hear something, the more you believe it. Getting in his word is medicinal. Praying and speaking to God when we're feeling high and when we're feeling low, that's like a shot of tequila or a strain of weed that no one can get close to inventing or growing. And fasting grants a level of discipline and obedience that opens doors. Our prayers need to elevate and begin to adjust to the level of destruction that the enemy is coming for us at. He's coming strong and to destroy, but we need to remember that even if he thinks he got some funky little cheat codes to mess with our minds, remember and know that God is unmatched and undefeated. No one is beside him, and we are his. Y'all, a book that I highly recommend to really elevate your prayer life and get strategic in your prayers is a book called Fervent, and it's by Priscilla Schreier. So we need to be strategic and intentional about our mental health and strategic about our prayer life, about our self-care, about our yes and walk with God, and encourage the women and the men around us to do the same. Pray over your husbands. Pray over your sons. Y'all, women carry a lot, but men carry a lot too. They're so expected to be the backbone and expected to hold in so much. Pray over your friends and your families. And even when you can't pray, you know what to do. Open your mouth and just call his name. He'll do the rest. And even when you can't, he can interpret your moans. Suicide and mental health are at an all-time high, especially around the holidays. If you or you know somebody struggling, please reach out for help. It's okay to not be okay, and it's okay to need help. It's okay to reach out for help because at the end of the day, that's you, your life, and how you're feeling. And God wants you to be happy and feel joy and feel loved. And if you're feeling anything less than that, learn to recognize when the enemy is coming for you and fight back. If you don't feel like anybody else loves you, know that I do. Until next time, y'all.